When you're kind of in a crisis, it's pretty difficult to hear like, oh, there's going to be a 6-month wait and then you'll get help. And so something like the Foundry could serve as a bridge between you and accessing these existing services, as well as providing social support that isn't always thought of as necessary, but is so important.
I think the importance of the Foundry is not only for like the social and the mental health and the physical health implication is also that a lot of kids just need like a third space to just exist. You know, it's not always about, oh, I need help. Sometimes it's just, I want to be in a room with kids that are like me.
It's critical that we hear from young people about, what would serve them best. We may have ideas about what would make a welcoming space, but I'm not a young person anymore. I cannot look at it through the lens of a young person.
We live in an age of increasing complexity, divisions, and dangers. And for young people especially, concerns about mental health, substance use, and physical and sexual health can become compounded by uncertainties around social status and employment and education prospects. And for a demographic directly impacted by pandemic isolation and the shift to digital socialization, reaching out for real-world help can be stressful and confusing. Help is available, but too often it's spread out across multiple agencies in different locations with no connecting thread for vulnerable young people badly in need of exactly that, connection. But one organization is taking a different, more integrated approach to health and well-being for youth, and during the planning phase for their future center in White Rock, they are calling on the very same demographic they serve to also provide guidance and input. Young people ages 12 to 24. This is The Power to Heal. In this series of podcasts, we'll focus on the many innovative ways Peace Arch Hospital, located in White Rock, British Columbia, Canada, has been an integral part of its community. We'll take you behind the scenes of the hospital's dynamic fundraising arm and talk to those who are instrumental in creating new initiatives to help this important healthcare facility grow and evolve along with the town it serves. In the previous episode of Power to Heal, we introduced our listeners to Foundry, a province-wide network of integrated health and wellness centers for young people ages 12 to 24. Foundry centers are based on 3 principles: bringing together multiple youth services in one location, continual innovation and improvement, and the focus of this episode, actively seeking out input and ideas from the young people and families they serve. Ocean and Ruby are 2 post-secondary students from the South Surrey White Rock community. Both are volunteers with a youth advisory committee created to help make the upcoming Foundry Center, located near Peace Arch Hospital, an initiative supported by the hospital's foundation, a more welcoming and inclusive space for its young visitors. George Passmore is an executive director with Sources BC, a nonprofit community-based provider of social wellness programs and services, and the lead organization behind the new Foundry Center. Ocean, Ruby, and George spoke with host Lance Peverly, a journalist and former editor of the Peace Arch News, and a longtime resident of the South Surrey White Rock area.
George, so nice to talk to you again. Before we introduce our 2 younger guests, people who also make a big difference in our South Surrey White Rock community, could you briefly recap for our listeners what your organization, Sources BC, actually does?
Absolutely, Lance. Happy to be here again. Sources Community Resources is a multi-service organization that has services throughout British Columbia, but has a huge presence in South Surrey White Rock. We offer the food bank, Sources Women's Place. We have community outreach to vulnerable populations, an overdose prevention site. And down here where I am in White Rock, we're offering counseling, substance use services, child and family services, and youth services. And in particular, we're really excited to be developing the new Foundry South Surrey White Rock Center, hopefully.
Well, can you tell us why you're leading the effort to bring a Foundry Center to our community?
Yes, we know that our current system does not always serve young people as well as it should. Young people face waiting lists and a very confusing network of services that it's hard to know where to start. We want to bring all this together under one roof. So there's one right door that young people can know they walk through, and anything they might need can be there for them in an integrated way. So there's no more silos between programs, and youth age 12 to 24 can have youth-oriented care. We also know that it needs to serve families, right? And often families end up feeling very marginalized or sidelined when their children are receiving services. So we want to make sure this is as holistic and accessible as possible.
In our previous episode, we touched on how local Foundry centers are established with input from young people who are in the same age range as the people they serve, the 12 to 24. Why is this important?
Well, as you know, every community is different. So one of the beauties of Foundry is that while it has a structure and some branding, it allows for input from every community. And the most important voice that we need to hear from are young people. They're the ones we're serving. They're the ones who've been experiencing the system as it is today and know what it is that they need and their peers. We may have ideas about what would make a welcoming space, but I'm not a young person anymore. I cannot look at it through the lens of a young person. So at our last youth advisory committee meeting on Tuesday, our architect was present, and we got an opportunity for all the youth advisors to sit down and look at the schematic design and play with the floor plan and the little puzzle pieces to see what configuration do you think would work for you? What would feel welcoming when you walk in the doors?
Having young people as part of this, perhaps the architects were getting different questions than they would normally if the young people weren't there.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I think the notion of what young people would want to be included in the Foundry Center, it was definitely driven by the youth that are in the room, as well as the idea around what would be important to be located among the 3 floors that we have in our center. Where should the snacks be? Where do we want the demonstration kitchen? Should that be connected to the group room? Anyway, all of those kind of factors, it's critical that we hear from young people about what would serve them best. We may have our ideas, but we're not the service recipients. So yeah, we're really appreciative to have the youth involved, including Ruby and Ocean.
Well, I would like to first ask, how does this process differentiate Foundry from other community services for this age group?
Well, Foundry really is an integrative model. So the whole revolution of integrated youth services is it's bringing together very fragmented services that don't always work so well together, and brings them all into one place and working together to wrap around the needs of the young person. So if someone's got some complexities to what they're dealing with, like family conflict, perhaps some mental health challenges, some substance use, and also wanting to figure out how to navigate their relationship with school or work, rather than having to go to 5 different places, they can walk through the doors of Foundry. And instead of having to tell their story to 5 different people, they can tell it once and have the people that are serving them behind the scenes have access to that story in a way that works for that young person and ensure that a service plan gets put together that is integrated.
At this point, I'd like to introduce our listeners to Ruby and Ocean, 2 of the young people helping make the upcoming Foundry Center in White Rock a welcoming, inclusive place. Ruby, tell us a bit about yourself and how you got involved with helping to organize this new center.
Yeah, totally. I'm 19 years old. I'm currently at UBC studying to be a psychologist. I'm in my 2nd year. I got involved with the Foundry through my mom's work, actually. Her name's Sarah Forte, and she was on the board at Sources. And so she and her friend Courtney started this event called the In Her Shoes Fashion Show to raise money for Women's Place. And I did some volunteering with that and was super interested in helping out wherever I could. And she found out about the Foundry and thought, because of my experience dealing with mental health, as well as my interest in the field, that it would be a good fit for me to get involved on the advising board.
And you're agreeing with them, obviously. It sounds like you're getting a lot out of this.
Yeah, it's definitely very rewarding, and it really feels like we're making a difference.
And Ocean, you're in school full-time? How did you first hear about Foundry and what resonated with you?
Yeah, I'm in school full-time at BCIT. I'm 20 years old. And I first found out about the Foundry actually was at my previous volunteering job at the youth space. I attended something called Youth Unfiltered, which is where I met George, because he had a little stand there talking about the Foundry and stuff. And yeah, I kind of just was emailing the Foundry and sources back and forth, and that's how I got more involved with the whole process.
Well, how would you compare their approach to delivering health and wellness services with what you've seen so far with Foundry?
I would say with the Foundry, it's, as George said, is kind of an all-in-one type of situation, whereas at the previous places I volunteered at, you are given the resources, but you still have to go out of your way to find the help yourself. Whereas with the Foundry, it's kind of, you go in and it'll all kind of be there for you without having to go elsewhere to look for the help that you need.
George, are you able to add to this at all?
Ocean was talking about the Youth Unlimited. That was an event that was held where we invited young people to come and provide input on what's needed in this community at large. So that was an event put on by the Tides of Change Community Action Team on Overdose Prevention in conjunction with some of the other youth-serving organizations. We were able to, from that event, connect with a whole bunch of youth that had a really powerful voice, and we knew would be amazing additions to our Youth Advisory Committee.
Okay. And Ruby and Ocean, did you two know each other prior to this?
I had never met anybody on the Youth Advisory Council, which is so cool. It's amazing. There's a range of ages. And so we have people from like 12 to, I think, 21 or 22. And so you're interacting with a lot of people that you maybe wouldn't otherwise, which is really special.
Ocean, do you have anything to add?
I would say for myself, yeah, I actually did know a couple people that are part of kind of the Foundry meetings that also attended the youth space. But for the most part, a lot of the people that I've been meeting there have been pretty new faces. So it's been good to kind of be able to learn a lot of different perspectives.
We'll talk more about the unique aspects of the Foundry model in just a bit, but I first want to set the stage for our listeners as to why these centers are so important and so effective. Ruby, the news is full of stories about how so many young people are truly struggling these days, especially with substance use and mental health issues. When you talk with your peers, what are you hearing?
I'm definitely hearing a lot of overwhelm. Like, there's so much going on in the world right now, like politically, economically. It's like a very scary time to be going into the world and kind of expected to like find a job and get a house and figure stuff out. And so a lot of my peers are feeling very just kind of overwhelmed and uncertain about what the future is going to look like. There's also a lot of struggles with loneliness and feeling alone. There's a lot of people on social media who are posting like they have their life together. And so it's very difficult to feel like you're behind or you're the only one who's struggling. So that's definitely some stuff that I'm seeing in people my age.
Ocean, the age range that Foundry centers support, 12 to 24, it used to be considered some of the best years of people's lives. What do you think has changed?
Honestly, I would still say that these years are still pretty important for people's lives. I wouldn't just say that they're not anymore, but I feel like in this day and age, it's been increasingly difficult for younger people to find the resources that they need for help, because especially with our generation now, it's more important to get like the mental health services that you need and like the physical wellness that you need. Whereas I feel like when I talk to my mom about these things, it's like back then they didn't really have the resources available for you, or it was kind of taboo, or they didn't really talk about it. So I think it's also just more talked about now that we need more help with just overall mental health and everything.
I'm also thinking about how young the center goes, to age 12. Can you think back to when you were both 12 years old? Kind of imagine what this sort of center could do for your friends and classmates?
Yeah, I remember the big thing about being 12 for me was the transition to high school. It felt so overwhelming and new. And I was like, wow, I don't know what it's going to be like. I don't know how I'm going to find a community. It's also, when you're that age, it's very difficult to know where to look for support because you're still a child, essentially. And so you're kind of expected to have a level of maturity that you might not have yet. So I think that this center would be really helpful for people.
I'm trying to think back to, it was nearly half a century ago when I was 12, and our bullying was in person. And I presume today's armchair bullies can have easy access 24/7, and sometimes you feel really alone.
Yeah, I would say, especially when I was, younger or 12, I was dealing with a lot of bullying from my peers and just at my school in general because I was kind of new because I moved from Ontario. So it was very hard for me to deal with, and I was trying to get the help I needed by going to the counselors at my school, but it never really helped me in the ways that it should have. I still dealt with kind of my own mental health in my own ways, but yeah.
But you felt a little bit alone then. You had to really look for the support. When I was that age, I think my biggest issue was feeling like an outsider, and that was without all of the world's modern problems that have stuck with us. Ruby, one problem I didn't have at that age, the COVID pandemic, was difficult for everyone, but I would think especially for younger people. What were those years like for you and your friends?
I think it was definitely a crazy time. I know a lot of my friends reacted in one of two ways. So one camp was like, yay, no school, no sports. This is the best, because they didn't fully understand the depth of the situation. And then some people like me were like, oh my gosh, no school. What are we going to do? What's the future going to hold? And so I think it's been a big struggle. Like, a lot of people felt quite isolated because we couldn't see our friends. We couldn't learn the social interactions that we would have learned attending school in person. And then there was also a lot of uncertainty, which I'm sure planted roots for a lot of anxiety in people, because everything that we knew kind of went up in smoke.
Yes.
And it was very unpredictable, kind of no way of knowing what was coming next.
Ocean, when I was your age, feeling like I was part of a group or a community meant a great deal to me. The pandemic robbed so many young lives of these opportunities. What effect did that have on you and others around you?
I would say for me, before COVID, I had, a friend group, and I had a large group of people that I would go and talk to and hang out with a lot. And during the pandemic, it was very hard for me to even go outside or to talk to these people, even online. It was hard for me to maintain these relationships that I had with people. But I feel like definitely for a lot of people, it robbed that social interaction of being able to feel less lonely and to be able to connect, in a more physical sense, rather than, being forced to be online or just like seeing each other through call or on text and stuff. It's not the same as being able to have that social interaction with people.
George, as a parent during COVID, what did you see happening with your own kids?
So as a parent of 3 youth, what I experienced during COVID is I saw all 3 of my kids cope in different ways. But one phenomenon that I saw with all of the boys, that I have a girl and 2 boys, was just this immersion in online gaming that really took hold during COVID. And a comfort zone was developed around that. Their social connection was mediated through the game, highly immersive and rewarding. And when the world kind of emerged from COVID, this digital hold that had a grip on so many boys, it held. And there's many, many positives. It's fun. I know that if I was a young person these days, I would love it for sure. And it also meant that what I've noticed is for a lot of young people, as they're trying to navigate the world, there's not the same comfort zone that's been developed with that compared to the digital world. There's an ease of navigating that world. It's their familiar. And so then having to do a job interview or having to navigate different social groups was a challenge, especially with those kind of lost years of COVID.
Yes. During the developing years.
Pivotal developmental years.
First job interviews, first everything for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
According to the Canadian Institute for Health Information, there were more than 16.1 million unscheduled emergency department visits reported in Canada between April 2024 and March 2025. That's up from almost 15.5 million in the previous reporting period. And about 1 in 7 of those visits were for conditions that could have potentially been treated elsewhere. With these ER visits possibly occurring due to uncertainty about where else to go, wellness hubs for young people like Foundry can play an important role in providing preventative support for mental health or substance use, issues that, left unchecked, can result in future visits to already overcrowded emergency departments.
George, in our last episode, we talked about the major supporting role the Peace Arch Hospital Foundation is playing in establishing the new Foundry Center. Can you remind our listeners about that support and what it means for the community?
Peace Arch Hospital Foundation's been an incredible support for this initiative. Not only are they coming alongside and helping to raise the considerable funds that we do need to make a major renovation happen to transform what was a medical clinic into a youth-oriented multi-service space, but also they are our landlord. So it's been incredible to have that kind of partnership in the community. Otherwise, this would be a very daunting venture for an organization like Sources. This is a bigger reno than I think we've ever had to undertake before. And since the tariffs and everything, construction costs have shot through the roof. So
Yes.
we're looking at a bit of a daunting process. So Peace Arch Hospital Foundation and just their connection with the community, we feel very comforted having them as a philanthropy partner with us, but also knowing that we have a landlord that cares about having a generational resource like this. No young person will need to feel confused or alone, and no family member will need to know where the heck do I go to support my child. So knowing that the Peace Arch Hospital Foundation cares about this as much as we do is very empowering and inspiring. The foundation started to apply for Foundry to come to this community back in 2016. So this is the
Wow.
This is the third time that the community had applied for Foundry expansion, and third time was the charm. So here we
I
are.
was going to say persistence must pay off here.
Absolutely. Yes, we're very appreciative.
Ruby and Ocean are part of the Youth Advisory Council created to steer the direction of the new Foundry Center. Ruby, can you take us inside one of the council meetings? How large is the group and what sort of things are discussed?
Yeah, I think the group, I want to say, is around 30 youth, and they're all ranging in age from 12, 22. There's a big range of diverse cultural backgrounds, gender identities. It's incredible, actually. And so it's a very collaborative process. So often it's like George and others sort of leading these meetings, bringing points to our attention and then putting them to the group to discuss. We all kind of sit in a big circle so that everyone is kind of seen as like an equal and can feel open to share their ideas. And it's all about collaboration and sort of youth-oriented discussions, which is really cool.
George, it sounds like to get such a diverse group together, that was quite purposeful. It didn't just happen that way, or were you lucky?
Well, a bit of luck for sure, but we certainly had hopes that we would hear from a range of young people. We wanted, because the issues facing a 12-year-old are very different from
Yes.
a young adult who's trying to find their way in the world. So it was important that we had that age range, but also people from a variety of different backgrounds that can really think about what's critical for the Foundry resource to meet their needs. And we're really grateful for who put up their hand and said, yes, I want to bring my voice to this. Like Ruby said, it is quite diverse. And we try to have opportunities for everybody to make their contributions. So breaking into small groups for smaller group discussions so that people feel liberated to kind of share more of their perspective has been really cool to see. There's a lot of energy in the room, and the youth seems super passionate about bringing this to life. Particularly Ruby and Ocean, we can see their leadership qualities already.
Well, Ocean, tell me about your experience with the Advisory Council. Does it genuinely feel like your input is valued and appreciated?
Yeah, I would say that majority of the time, especially since we break off into smaller groups of like 5 to 6 people, I would say that I very enjoy like facilitating groups and making sure everyone's voices are heard. So in these groups, I take it upon myself to make sure that, everyone's opinion is equally said and everyone's ideas are, shared. But I would say that personally, even my own ideas, I feel like are accounted for. And, it's been very helpful for me to be able to kind of express myself and to allow other people who are a little bit more shyer than me to express themselves as well. It's been interesting to see kind of everyone's own personalities and their own thoughts and such.
Are the different groups, is it just simply to reduce the numbers so that everybody has an opportunity? Or are there actually like themes for each group or topics for each group to address?
I would say it depends. Sometimes we kind of do a rotation where at this certain table, you're going to talk about this topic, and then you're going to go to this table and then talk about this topic. Or it can be like one topic that's been split up between 3 or 4 groups, and then we come together as a whole and talk about it all together.
Have you had a favorite topic that has come up so far?
So far, I kind of really enjoyed talking about the moral and the more like ideologies that we want the Foundry to have, like the root and the foundation of kind of what we want to build upon. I found that conversation to be very interesting, and to see everyone else's thoughts and opinions on it has been cool as well.
The Foundry model combines health, wellness, and social services in one location. I'd like to ask if either of you or someone you know have lived experiences that would have benefited from access to an integrated wellness hub like the Foundry.
I mean, I have personal experience dealing with an eating disorder, which is very intensive to get care because you need care from a lot of different people in a lot of different places. So it's working with a doctor and a psychologist. And so having a place like the Foundry where it's integrated and all in one would have made seeking treatment a lot simpler and a lot faster, because one of the main issues I had was seeking help through the public space. There's a lot of demand, and so wait times are quite long. And when you're kind of in a crisis, it's pretty difficult to hear like, oh, there's going to be a 6-month wait and then you'll get help. And so something like the Foundry could kind of serve as a bridge between you and accessing these existing services, as well as providing stuff like social support that isn't always thought of as necessary, but is so important.
And Ocean, can you think of anything that of your friends that might have experienced something that?
I would say not so much my friends, but for me personally, I've also dealt with kind of a similar situation where I felt like I would only be getting the help I needed if it was a crisis situation. Like I couldn't, it wasn't a preventative measure where I could go in advance and be like, I feel something might be happening. Is like, okay, no, if it's only when I'm in a crisis and I need the help immediately, that's when the resources would be given to me. And I feel like with the Foundry, it's more of a preventative measure where you don't have to wait till it's like the absolute last moment. You're able to prevent it way in advance so you don't get to that crisis point.
That sounds like the ultimate in healthcare is you address it at the time that can be most effective.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think your experiences on the advisory council may influence your future direction in life? I'm thinking not only in terms of career or education, but also in more intangible ways too. Ocean, you go first.
Being in the Foundry has been kind of an odd experience for me just because I have been working with youth for a long time, but I never truly envisioned myself working with youth for long term. But I feel like being in the Foundry and being able to kind of have my voice heard in different ways has been helpful in the sense that I can work with people that are younger than me, or I can, have a voice sometimes. And it's kind of been a little bit of a confidence booster at moments, being able to have that, a little bit of power and a little bit of leadership in certain situations.
Do you see yourself seeking a leadership role in career, or?
I would say eventually I do like personally being in a more leadership role, but I do also like following first and then testing the waters. And then once I'm like, okay, I understand, I get it, then I will pursue that more leadership role.
Developing the skills, getting the knowledge, and then taking over, right? Taking over the world. That sounds good.
Well, maybe someday.
How about you, Ruby?
Yeah, psychology and kind of support in that domain has always been an interest for me, but I definitely think working with the Foundry has made me realize how much I love working with youth specifically, that age demographic. It's just such a special time. And I'm only 19, so I can't really say, That's
the plan, right?
I love working with all these young people, and it's I'm 5 years older than them. But I really find a lot of value in young perspectives, and it kind of gives me a lot of hope in this time to see the future's kind of in great hands. We are going to do a great job.
It sure sounds like the future's in good hands. To finish up, I'd like to ask our 3 guests what their hopes are for the new Foundry Centre and what impact it will have on young people in South Surrey White Rock. George?
Well, as somebody who has been already working at this for 6 years, supporting the Foundry Surrey Central and seeing that launch back in November, I happened to run into the leader of that initiative. And what she said to me was, George, it's already working.
Oh, wow.
Somebody came in to the sexual health clinic, and when she left her appointment, she saw that there was support for vocational services. Went, I've been looking for work. I'm desperate, and I didn't know there was help right here. And so just walked across the waiting room and connected with that resource. Other stories around just the absolutely beautiful impact of having peer support embedded, that people with lived experience can support others with what they've gone through. And I think also I've had so many friends of mine call me because they know I work in this field in a moment of absolute crisis, that their teenage child was going through a major mental health episode and they did not know where to turn. And they had an experience of going to the emergency room and being there for hours, and only for it to result in discouragement. I want the families of this community to feel confident they can walk through that one right door and feel like their young person is in good hands.
Beautiful. Ruby and Ocean, is there anything that we haven't discussed that you would like to see from the Foundry?
I feel like George did an excellent job at covering it.
I may just want to add something to the last question. Basically, so I think the importance of the Foundry is not only for the social and the mental health and the physical health implication, is also that a lot of kids just need a third space to just exist. It's not always about, I need help. Sometimes it's just, I want to be in a room with kids that are like me, or I want to be by myself, but, knowing that there's people in the same building, because it can be a lot going from all you do is school or work or school then home, and there's no space in between where you can kind of just exhale. And I think that's also a really important factor of the Foundry.
That's fantastic. Well, I'd like to thank our guests for joining us today and for their contributions to this important new youth service that is coming to our community. Thank you.
To learn more about Foundry and the services it provides to young people, visit foundrybc.ca. George Passmore's organization, Sources Community Resource Centers, can be found at sourcesbc.ca. Did you know the full name of our hospital's fundraising arm is the Peace Arch Hospital and Community Health Foundation? We call ourselves that because our focus is on not only supporting our dedicated hospital staff with things like new medical scanners and updated operating rooms, but also by reaching out to help foster better health and wellness in our community of South Surrey White Rock. And none of this is possible without the support of our generous donors, who since 1988 have helped us raise more than $250 million for capital projects, medical equipment, and community health programs. But there is still so much more to do, and with your financial contributions, we can continue to build on this legacy of care and generosity. Visit us today at pahfoundation.ca. That's pahfoundation.ca to learn more about our wide range of giving options and how your donations can make a difference in the lives of our community. This has been Power to Heal, presented by the Peace Arch Hospital Foundation. I'm Katie Bennison. Thanks for listening.
Another Everything Podcast production. Visit everythingpodcast.com, a division of Pattison Media. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast.